Quiet, please. Thank you. Good afternoon. Welcome to the New York City Hybrid Hearing on the Committee on Parks and Recreation. Please silence all electronic devices at this time. Also, please do not approach the dais. If you have any questions, please raise your hand, and one of us, the Sergeant at Arms, will kindly assist you. Thank you very much for your kind cooperation. Chair, we're ready to begin.
Thank you so much, Sergeant. Good afternoon. My name is Shekhar Krishnan, Chair of the City Council's Committee on Parks and Recreation. Today's hearing will revisit an issue which I am sad to say does not only need to be revisited, but addressed in a meaningful way, which is what actions the City of New York is taking and that they can implement to prevent drownings at the city's pools and beaches and improve safety overall. There are currently 53 locations with outdoor swimming pools, 17 mini pools, and 12 indoor swimming pools, which are located in recreation centers. Outdoor pools are free and open to the public, typically from late June through early September. There are also 9 beaches covering 14 miles, which are open from Memorial Day weekend through the Sunday after Labor Day each year, with lifeguards on duty daily from 10 a.m. till 6 p.m. Millions of people make use of the city's beaches and pools each year, and the COVID-19 pandemic highlighted the extent of how crucial our parks, pools, and beaches are for New Yorkers, like never before. Since the recovery from the pandemic, attendance at pools and beaches have soared, but whether we have enough resources to sufficiently meet the public safety and recreational needs remains a huge and open question mark. Over the course of this past summer, 7 people tragically died from drownings at our city beaches, which was the highest amount since 2019. On June 21st, 2 Brooklyn teenagers drowned while swimming at Jacob Riis Park in the Rockaways. On July 5th, 2 Bronx teenager sisters drowned while swimming at Coney Island Beach. On July 17th, a 26-year-old man was drowned near Beach 95th Street in the Rockaways. On July 22nd, a 30-year-old man drowned near Beach 96th Street in the Rockaways. And on August 14th, a person drowned at Orchard Beach. The 7 drowning deaths this summer, as I mentioned before, are the highest since 2019. They dropped last year, but now have crept up again. 7 New Yorkers. 7 brothers, sisters, children, neighbors, relatives. 7 people killed on our city's beaches. This is a crisis. One that this administration needs to take far more seriously and use every tool at its disposal, every resource possible to address it. 1 death is one too many. But the fact that our numbers have crept up to 7, the highest in the last 5 years, is a reflection of the work that needs to be done by this administration and the urgency with which they need to take this crisis. This crisis is urgent, and the moment demands far more serious and comprehensive action from city government. Now, drowning remains a serious public health crisis, with over 4,500 people drowning each year nationally between 2020 and 2022. It is a leading cause of death for children. However, this is a preventable crisis if we can summon the political will to divert enough resources to education and outreach on swimming and water safety. This is a question of will, not a question of resources. To highlight this, over 40 million adults in the United States do not know how to swim, with 1 in 3 African American adults being unable to swim, 2 in 3 African American adults reporting to never have taken a swimming lesson, and 3 in 4 Hispanic adults reported never taking a swimming lesson. As well as in our Asian American communities too, the statistics are high and disparate. It's obvious that communities that have been historically underserved educationally and socioeconomically have the highest risk of water-related injuries and death. In previous hearings and other work conducted by this committee, we have highlighted why this is the case, as these communities simply do not have easy access to pools and swimming instruction and other water recreation. Using a similar metric that is typically used to determine access to open space, 65% of Manhattan residents are able to walk to a pool in 15 minutes or less, followed by the Bronx with 34%, Brooklyn with 31%, Staten Island with 19%, and Queens with only 12% of its residents able to walk to a pool in 15 minutes or less. In my district that I represent as the Parks Chair of Jackson Heights and Elmhurst, not only do we have the least amount of green space in all of New York City, we do not have a single public pool in my entire council district. Further, although there are 64 parks locations that contain pools, there are 18 council districts, like my own, that currently have no pools. This includes areas like Lower Manhattan, South Brooklyn, and most of Queens. Clearly, we must do better with focusing our resources on where we can build more pools. The continued lifeguard shortage, of course, remains problematic. The Parks Department has historically assigned around 1,400 lifeguards to beaches and pools throughout the city by July 4th. However, during the 2022 beach and pool season, the Parks Department only hired 778 lifeguards by July. In other words, about half of where we needed to be. In 2023, there were only 480 lifeguards to start the season in May. This past season, about 900 were able to be hired. Yes, improvement, but still far off from fully staffing our pools and beaches. Pools and beaches did remain open. However, as a result of the shortage, the Parks Department had to adjust areas on beaches that could remain open to swimming during the summer. And to its credit, the Parks Department has recognized the problem and reacted by raising lifeguard pay rates from 2022 through this year. It has also engaged in numerous efforts to start the recruitment process earlier and adjust the training and testing regimen in efforts to increase the number of potential applicants. These are conversations the Commissioner and I have had directly. But the shortage persists and has obviously impacted public safety. And for a mayor who claims to care deeply about public safety, as about quality of life, the fact that we cannot staff our pools and beaches, that we are losing teenagers to the waters every year, makes his words ring hollow. And yes, there is a national lifeguard shortage. No one denies that. But that is not an excuse for inaction. That is a reason to get creative, far more ambitious about the measures we can take in the confines of the crisis to do all we can as a city to create, to hire, train, and keep lifeguards, and also create a pipeline for them. It's crucial that we recognize the work that lifeguards perform day in and day out. Despite the incidents that have occurred this summer, lifeguards make countless saves and are the primary reason why there aren't even more emergencies at our beaches and pools. No doubt their work is heroic, and part of our purpose here today is to highlight how heroic lifeguards are and how necessary they are to have a sufficient number of them to prevent the loss of life and injury. Earlier this year, when we held another hearing on this very same topic, I discussed a 5-point plan of action where the city could intervene and act to dramatically improve water safety. First, the city should expand the hours and seasons for pools and beaches. To be safe in the water, New Yorkers need to be exposed to the water. Outdoor public pools and beaches should be open to families when weather allows on a schedule that accommodates working parents and their children. The bill I've sponsored, Intro number 275, which the committee heard back in March, mandates that operating hours should be from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., and the bathing season should run from mid-May to mid-October. This will add 4 hours each day and 7 weeks each season, effectively doubling the time that New Yorkers can use outdoor pools and beaches. We simply need to extend the hours that lifeguards are available to maintain safety at the beaches, and this bill does exactly that. When it is hot, people will attempt to swim. And short of finding physical barriers to closed beaches, which no one wants, we need more personnel to keep watch over beachgoers. Simply put, we have to be realistic about this. Because of climate change, it is getting warmer earlier in the year, and it is staying warmer till later in the year, including today. And the reality is, when it stays warmer for longer during the year and into the evening, New Yorkers will swim. They will want to swim. For many parents for whom the beaches are a refuge because they don't have access to a pool, and the communities are hot, and the streets are hot, going to the beaches are a way to get themselves and their children to cool off. And I'm sure we'll hear that there aren't enough lifeguards to actually implement this bill. But notice the cyclical pattern, the circular reasoning that we're engaging in as a city if that's how we approach it. We need more. We need our pools and beaches open longer, but we can't do it because we don't have enough lifeguards to do so. That kind of thinking has to change. This is a public health and a public safety crisis. Next, the Department of Education should create a junior lifeguard corps. The lifeguard shortage doesn't just put families at risk of drowning when they cool off in public waters. It also forces closures, further depriving New Yorkers of access. A pre-considered bill I've sponsored, which we're examining today, will require parks and the Department of Education to determine how best to launch a junior lifeguard corps, using students, school pools, and city or nonprofit staff to provide training to city students who will be able to satisfy physical education requirements, work towards a rewarding career, and spend their summers saving lives. The fact of the matter is, our youth want to lifeguard. They want to learn how to swim. They want a summer job. And if we're going to address the lifeguard crisis, a meaningful way to do so is to create a pipeline from children in school that can be trained, that can learn not only how to swim, but how to lifeguard and become our future lifeguards. I have seen this in action recently when I was at Rising Tide's graduation ceremony for NYCHA students who are learning and trained now in water safety. That is our future. And if we are going to address this crisis in a meaningful way, then we've got to work with the organizations on the ground that are doing this work every day, that are teaching our children how to swim, and create a pipeline of lifeguards and talent to be able to address this crisis. They are our future lifeguards. They are our future. Third, we must extend free swim for all programs to more New Yorkers. 1 in 4 New York City children does not know how to swim. They will grow up to be adults who are afraid of the water. The Parks Department and the Department of Education should work with nonprofits to ensure universal access to free swim instruction for second graders. The city should also invest in a significant expansion of free swim programs for adults. This is especially crucial since these programs are potentially slated for cuts in the administration's proposed budget, and private funding was needed to be raised to create new swim programs as a bulwark against what would be a terrible hit to public water safety programs. And again, just like with our bill to create a pipeline of lifeguards and a junior lifeguard corps, where City Hall won't act, we in the City Council will do so. If the response is that the legislation that was passed to teach all second graders how to swim with Councilmember Julie Menin, if the administration won't implement it because they don't have the funds to do so, then we in the City Council showed what's possible. Both Councilmember Menin and I worked together with the Gray Foundation and a network of swim organizations, Asphalt Green, the YMCA, Common Point, to create a $1 million pilot teaching second graders in neighborhoods, in highest need neighborhoods across the city, how to swim. And when we didn't have pools, like in my own district, to implement that program, We worked with the school to open up their pool to the community to teach second graders how to swim, a class that was in high demand all summer and into the fall. Where City Hall will not act, we in the City Council will do so and show what is possible. Fourth, we must build more pools. More than 2/3 of New Yorkers do not have access to a public pool nearby. We cannot ensure that New Yorkers are safe in the water if they cannot access pools. We must build more pools in every borough, prioritizing the communities that lack them. Lastly, the city should create an atlas of aquatics programs. Aquatics programs can only help New Yorkers if we know where, when, and how to find them. This is a very real scenario. I've heard from numerous parents, myself included, that to go find classes to teach children how to swim is extraordinarily difficult. Where they are, what time they're being offered, and not just Parks Department programs that are often oversubscribed, understandably so, but all the programs that nonprofits are offering throughout the city. We need a one-stop place, thank you, where we can find these programs and enroll our children. That's what this bill does. The other pre-considered bill we're hearing today that I'm sponsoring will require the Parks Department to create a public, searchable, web-based map listing both public pools as well as programs available at each site. I also want to call attention to Resolution 469, which I've also sponsored. This resolution would recognize May 15th as International Water Safety Day, which brings awareness to the epidemic of drowning and educates children and adults about how they can become safer in, on, and around the water. When we held our hearing in March, it was my hope that some of the solutions raised at the hearing would have been well on their way onto being implemented by now. Sadly, this has not been the case. And we saw the tragic results of that inaction taking place on our beaches throughout the summer, with the deaths of 7 New Yorkers. It is why we in the City Council have prioritized water safety where City Hall has failed to act. It is why, with Speaker Adams in Majority Whip Selvina Brooks Powers District last week, a number of council members, the Speaker, and I held a press conference joined by families of victims who were lost in the waters, calling attention to this crisis at Rockaway Beach and in anticipation of today's hearing. Because everything that we can do, from legislation to public attention to pilot programs, even finding private funding to do so, to today's hearing, we in the City Council, with Speaker Adams' leadership, will take every step that we can, will take every measure we can to address this crisis. We are committed to doing so, and we would hope that we would have a partner in City Hall that felt the same. Now is the time to ensure that next summer and all future summers are not a repeat of what happened this past summer. We must address the crisis on our city's beaches. We can do no less. And it is long past time that we find a better, more effective, and more comprehensive way to do so. New Yorkers are depending on us. I look forward to discussing further these issues today and welcome all who have come to testify. Thank you. And I'd like to now recognize the members who are here with us today. We have in person Councilmember Holden, Councilmember Narcisse, Councilmember Ung, Councilmember Carr, and on virtual we have Councilmember Caban, and virtual as well, Councilmember Narcisse and Councilmember Ung. I will now request our committee council swear in our panel of witnesses from the Parks Department.
Thank you, Chair. Would representatives of the Parks Department please raise your right hand if you're able? Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this committee and to respond honestly to council member questions? Thank you. Please begin when you're ready. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Is this on? Yes. Good afternoon, Chair Krishnan, members of the Parks Committee, and other members of the City Council. I'm Sue Donahue, Commissioner of New York City Parks. I'm pleased to be joined today by members of our senior staff, including our First Deputy Commissioner, Iris Rodriguez-Rosa, Bonnie Williams, our Chief of Special Programs, and Matt Drury, our Chief of Citywide Legislative Affairs. New York City Parks has long been committed to improving New Yorkers' quality of life through aquatic recreation, promoting health, fitness, and safety awareness at all of our beaches and pools. Our public beaches and pools are an essential part of summertime in New York City and have become more critical than ever in providing relief from the heat as climate change brings us ever-increasing temperatures. I am so proud of our park staff, lifeguards, filter plant operators, maintenance workers, Parks Enforcement Patrol, and everyone in between who worked hard every day this summer to keep our pools and beaches open, clean, and safe for the enjoyment of New Yorkers and visitors alike. In addition to 148 miles of waterfront parkland, our agency maintains over 14 miles of public beachfront, 8 separate beaches located at various points along New York City's shoreline, and 53 outdoor pools, all of which are open to the public every summer for swimming and other recreational activities completely for free. I'm pleased to announce that we recently completed our 2024 summer beach and pool season, during which 7.4 million New Yorkers came out to enjoy our incredible beaches, and over 1 million New Yorkers visited our outdoor pools. As we testified before this committee earlier this year, New York City Parks has been working tirelessly to increase the number of lifeguards serving our city, and those efforts have already produced real results for New Yorkers. Today, we're thrilled to share that our lifeguard corps grew significantly over last year, with 930 lifeguards in our ranks at the season's peak, nearly a 10% increase in the number of lifeguards protecting visitors at our city's pools and beaches. Thanks to our intensive efforts this past fall and winter, we were able to increase the number of new lifeguard recruits by 46% by expanding testing and training sites, partnering with sister agencies like DOE to hold qualifying exams at their sites, allowing more flexibility for vision exam locations, and other process improvements. We're also very proud of the work we did in the off-season to successfully renegotiate the lifeguard union contract with District Council 37 for the first time in 40 years, which resulted in process improvements such as modified swim time requirements for lifeguards serving at shallow water pools. Additionally, we secured an increased baseline hourly wage of $22 for our seasonal lifeguards and a $1,000 retention bonus, all of which greatly aided our recruitment efforts. But our efforts to keep New Yorkers safe didn't end there. In the midst of extreme weather conditions, Parks implemented a new safety protocol during heat waves, which allowed beach lifeguards, alongside our Parks Enforcement Patrol, to provide additional support in responding to emergencies past the end of swimming hours each day. As we know all too well, water safety and swim instruction saves lives. Accidental drowning is the second leading cause of unintentional injury-related death among children under the age of 14, with a disproportionate impact on Black and brown youth. which is why we were thrilled to be able to bring back our popular Learn to Swim program back to our outdoor pools this summer, which served 3,000 children citywide through free classes offered in every borough for tots and children aged 1.5 to 17. This was in addition to the summer swim instruction and aquatic exercise programming provided to over 1,500 children, adults, and seniors at our indoor recreation center pools. Our urban park rangers conducted tabling at our beaches around the city with information provided in multiple languages, promoting ocean safety and informing the public about the dangers of rip currents. And over 530 attendees at New York City Parks youth summer camps received valuable exposure to swim instruction and water safety awareness programming. In an effort to serve New Yorkers of all ages, this summer we were able to bring back our popular Senior Splash program for the first time since the start of the pandemic. The program, which served more than 900 seniors this summer, offered free water aerobics classes for seniors at outdoor pools across the city, helping older adults to improve their fitness and socialize in a relaxing and enjoyable setting. This administration believes it's critical for New Yorkers to have equitable access to beautiful and safe swimming spaces during the hot summer months, and we're committed to investing in building and repairing our pools and related facilities. Most notably, this summer, we were very pleased to reopen one of the jewels of our park system, Astoria Pool in Queens, following a transformative renovation. This historic pool, which is the city's oldest and largest, at nearly 90 years old and over a full acre in size, underwent a full-scale renovation, representing a $19 million investment in this beloved community amenity. We reconstructed the pool shell, installed new filtration, recirculation, and treatment systems, and upgraded other elements to improve pool operations and provide a more enjoyable experience for pool visitors. Joined by Mayor Adams at the reopening ceremony for that classic facility at the start of the summer, we were thrilled to announce Let's Swim NYC, a capital investment totaling more than $1 billion over 5 years to build, improve, and protect New York City's public pools. This funding marks the city's largest sustained investment in swimming infrastructure since the 1970s. Through this effort, the city is directing necessary funding towards 39 pools, including the construction of 2 brand new indoor pools and the full renovation of 3 additional pools. This historic investment is expanding recreational water access throughout the 5 boroughs, helping more New Yorkers learn water safety skills that save lives. Of course, there's always more work to be done, which is why we were so thrilled and appreciative when Governor Hochul announced the results of the state's NYS Swims funding initiative last month, through which the city was awarded over $46 million, which will allow for the full renovation of 4 existing city pool facilities and the construction of a brand new aquatic center to serve the Arverne and Edgemere communities in Queens. We're grateful for Governor Hochul's generous support and look forward to working with the state to deliver those projects for New Yorkers. Looking ahead, keeping our beachgoers safe will continue to be our top priority, and our incredible lifeguards will continue to be a core component of our beach and pool operations. We're already hard at work preparing for this 2025 summer season, and we'll continue to explore every avenue to recruit and retain even more qualified lifeguards, including increasing opportunities for potential lifeguards to test and qualify. However, the reality is that the entire nation is still facing a very challenging environment for lifeguard hiring. We would like to ask the council and other advocates to please continue helping us to get the word out to potential lifeguards regarding this fun and rewarding seasonal employment opportunity. Given the strong ties and relationships that you have all built over time in your local communities, we would love to see every council member and every elected official recruiting 10 or more potential lifeguards to come out and take the qualifying swim tests for the 2025 season, which will begin later this year. Specific to the legislation being formally heard today, we are in the process of reviewing the bills and look forward to discussing them further with the council and our colleagues in the administration. We'd like to thank the council for their support for our city's parks and open spaces and for their partnership in educating New Yorkers about the importance of water safety. If there are any questions, we'd be happy to answer those at this time.
Thank you so much, Commissioner, First Deputy Commissioner, and the whole Parks team who's here. We appreciate your work and dedication every day to the issues affecting our park system, including our pools and beaches. And I also want to recognize, before we go any further, that Councilmember Palladino has joined us virtually. I've got some questions before turning it over to my colleagues. The first one is I have to ask honestly, you know, there's no doubt that the Parks Department is doing all it can with the resources it has, and the lack of resources from a mayor who campaigned on increasing the parks budget is a huge contributor to this problem. And there's no doubt that the workers, the lifeguards, as I mentioned before, are heroic and are working hard every day to save lives. But I want to read the headline of a press release that both City Hall and the Parks Department put out yesterday. It is, as you mentioned, Commissioner, the Adams administration celebrates successful beach and pool season, honors heroic public safety workers who saved New Yorkers from drowning. Now, I know there's a lot of work to be done to be able to increase our lifeguard corps to protect our pools and beaches. But one thing that I find striking is the lack of recognition of this gravity of the crisis that we face. When we saw drownings this summer, the mayor made flippant comments about children not swimming, or youth not swimming after hours. And to see a press release put out that celebrates a successful pool and beach season. It calls it a successful pool and beach season, but we suffered the highest number of drowning deaths this summer since before COVID. And we are still at 2/3 adequate lifeguard staffing. How does this administration define success?
Thank you, Councilman, for that question. And we did put out that press release yesterday, and we do feel, with having served over 7 million New Yorkers at our beaches and over 1 million at our pools, and what you reference, and we so agree, the heroic work of our lifeguards, dozens of saves in a very, very busy, challenging environment. We do want to recognize the good work of our staff in serving over 8 million New Yorkers in the summer and providing an incredible outlet for relief from the heat, and recognize our lifeguards, our Parks Enforcement Patrol staff, our filter plant operators, all the different elements that have to come together to manage a park system and a pool and beach system of that magnitude. We absolutely feel it's critical, and to recognize the incredible work that was done. We have 45% increase in new recruits into the system. 70% of those were between the ages of 16 and 18. The word is getting out. We think that investment of $22 pay an hour is really critical. We have seen things coming together to provide for increases in the number of lifeguards, the number of new recruits, and us being able to serve New Yorkers.
And I understand and appreciate that, as I said before, too. There's no doubt the work of the lifeguards is heroic, but that's just one half the equation. The other half is the extraordinary loss of life on our beaches and the lack of swim access, the lack of water safety education. And I can't understand why Mayor and City Hall and this administration cannot recognize the gravity of the crisis that we face and call it what it is, which is a water safety crisis in this city. And it just strikes me as very off-putting to celebrate a season when we are facing such an urgent situation on our beaches with the gravest consequences that we've seen, as I mentioned, since before the pandemic. And I think the only way to really address this issue is to begin by first recognizing the gravity and the seriousness of the crisis that we face. So one of my questions is, and you mentioned this before, Commissioner, is how many lifeguards in total ended up being hired during the 2024 beach season? And what is the breakdown of lifeguards in beaches versus pools?
Yes, thank you for the question, Council Member, and I want to address the first part of what you said. As I said in my testimony, the Parks Department in the city takes public safety and water safety extremely seriously, and the loss of life is devastating for us at parks and for all New Yorkers. And as a mother of 3 children, I would never, ever not take the gravity of the situation very seriously. It's devastating for all of us in this room and for all New Yorkers. We recognize that. We also feel that it's a really important opportunity to talk about water safety, to emphasize not swimming after hours when there are not lifeguards on duty. That's why we went out, we did an ethnic media roundtable, we did so much in terms of signage and our social media to really emphasize the importance of only swimming when lifeguards are on duty. It's dangerous to do otherwise. That's why we work hard to make sure people understand about red flags, people understand what the beach hours are, because we don't want people swimming when it's not safe. We don't want people swimming when there are not lifeguards on duty. To address your question, this year we increased the number of lifeguards to 930, and that's 409 beach lifeguards and 521 pool lifeguards.
So, Commissioner, I want to address that comment, and I do appreciate the measures that were taken. But what I'm hearing a lot from the administration is what people shouldn't be doing. Don't swim after hours. Don't go in the water past the red flags. I heard from one New Yorker who's a parent of a youth that passed away and drowned, that it would be helpful if the red flags actually had signage or print on them explaining what they mean. I'm hearing a lot, even from the mayor, about don't make sure that we don't go out after hours. But there's the reality that New Yorkers are going to swim later in the day and later in the season, given the realities of climate change. And what I'm not hearing enough of is not what New Yorkers should not be doing, but what can we do as city government to protect New Yorkers? And that's not, and I agree there's a component of this, which is water safety education, no doubt. And a component of water safety education is, of course, making sure to swim and letting parents know, be vigilant about your children going in the water after hours. But there seems to be a disconnect between the array of solutions that are needed beyond reprimanding New Yorkers not to go after hours and finding ways that we can affirmatively address this crisis. And I think we in the City Council would like to see more of those solutions from City Hall as we're proposing in our own legislation.
Thank you, Councilmember. I just want to note our red flags do have on the signage indication, international symbol of not swimming. They're not just plain red flags, they have a symbol on them to not swim. And also, I apologize if I didn't make it clear in my testimony, we're not only increasing recruitment, but also, the $1 billion investment in Let's Swim NYC is really about expanding access to pools, 2 new pools being created, and then investments in 39 pools. So we are being proactive both on the recruitment side and in the pool infrastructure side, absolutely.
And is what's written on the flags, is that actual writing, or is it just the picture
It's
itself?
an internationally recognized sign for no swimming.
So and that's good that they're internationally recognized signs, but the reality is that oftentimes, what we may think on a policy level makes sense may not always translate on the ground to reality for New Yorkers, especially many who don't know how to swim or in the water. And so I'm reporting what I'm hearing from New Yorkers. I know as a lawyer too, we can have all the laws in the world and all the regulations, but if they don't make sense, they're not accessible to New Yorkers or anyone on the ground, then the laws aren't going to have the intended effect or be worth more than the paper they're written on. And so one thing I think about is looking at different ways to explore making clear where the territories are to swim and not swim, but also we're hearing from New Yorkers that this is the kind of communication they want from parks. And there may be things that are done by the Parks Department already to address it, but the fact of the matter is there's too much of a focus on where not to swim, what hours not to swim during. And again, the hours right now, the time frame is just not the reality of where New Yorkers are on this issue because of how warm it is outside. And I just urge, again, City Hall, the mayor, this administration, to one, put funding in the Parks Department budget to address this issue. I think you all need funding absolutely to address it, and it's a problem when we're battling cuts to the Parks Department every year. And we have to be honest about what that means. And two, finding ways, even with the resources we have, to come up with more creative measures than simply telling New Yorkers, don't go in the water after hours, don't go into waters when a lifeguard isn't on duty. Part of what we have to anticipate is these foreseeable things that will happen. As I think about it in the law, in products liability law, you look at foreseeable misuses of a product and you protect against those foreseeable misuses. It is foreseeable that people will swim outside of hours. It is foreseeable that people may end up swimming past the red flags, even if there's communication on it too. And we've got to figure out what solutions we're going to do to address it beyond simply repeating that they have to be swimming when a lifeguard's on duty or during those hours. On that note, what did the budget allocate for maintaining Parks Department's beaches and pools this year? What was our total Parks Department budget, and how much went towards beaches and pools?
Thank you for the question, Council Member. And just to add to what you said, we completely agree, and that's why this summer we had our great Urban Park Rangers tabling at beaches in the Rockaways and in Coney Island, handing out materials, printed materials. The core part of what the Urban Park Rangers do is educate and inform, and so they were there tabling to let people know and New Yorkers know about the dangers of the water, specifically around rip currents and rip tides. We made flyers available in multiple languages, so a whole host, and also had our Parks Enforcement Patrol out and on the beaches until 9 o'clock after hours. Whole host of things that were done to help amplify that messaging around being safe and educating New Yorkers. In terms of our budget, we do not break down our budget by specific amenities. So we don't have a breakdown of pools versus beaches, but we look to spread our budget equitably across all of the 5 boroughs.
And so this summer, when it became clear that too many drownings and incidents were occurring at the beaches, aside from the distribution of material, around the beaches, what other steps were taken by the Parks Department and the administration to create a safer environment at the beaches?
Yes, and thank you for that question. So there were a whole host of things that we did. including, as I mentioned, so we had a Parks Enforcement Patrol are out on the beaches after hours until 9 p.m. on ATVs patrolling the beaches, helping to tell people not to be in the water. We had incredible collaboration with our sister agencies at FDNY, NYPD, Office of Emergency Management, flying drones from 9 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock at night. That just helps extend our reach, further eyes on the beaches, helping to inform us both of wildlife in the water and then also looking for situations that could be dangerous, helping to identify when there's a lost child, a whole number of things that along that huge 14-mile stretch of beaches, just another great way that we're able to help coordinate and communicate and to enhance beach safety. And then another important thing that we did, recognizing the challenges that we saw with so many heat emergencies, we actually implemented a new protocol at our beaches during heat emergencies whereby our lifeguards would be available in their shacks 1 hour after the beach closed. So not in lifeguard chairs. We didn't want to give the impression that we wanted people in the water, but we did want to do what we could to help expand water safety during that period of time when we knew it was hot weather, people would be on the beaches later. So we made lifeguards available in their locations so that in the event of an emergency, they could run out, they could be helpful, working in coordination with our Parks Enforcement Patrol officers, FDNY, PD, all the different eyes that are on the beaches. We did extend our lifeguards till 8 p.m. during heat emergency situations.
And with my bill, we extend them to 8 p.m. for a much longer season too. So that's what we're looking to do. I do want to ask the Commissioner on that point in particular, how many, these are the same PEP officers, for example, that are out on our beaches that are also patrolling our parks across the city, right?
Right.
How many PEP officers do we have in the Department of Parks and Recreation?
That number is 250? 260.
I was going to say
260.
300, but 260, so close
Yeah.
enough. But 260 PEP officers in our parks and across 14 miles of beaches. And I understand that was the work that was done to make up for the fact there were no lifeguards on duty, but it's not simply possible for, with the Parks Department budget the way it is, with the PEP officer corps the way it is, to patrol 14 miles of beaches with 260 PEP officers who are also responsible for all of our New York City parks too.
And I just have to add, Councilmember, thank you to Matt, that core of 260 is supplemented by an additional 250 seasonals, CSAs.
Thank you. And aside from trying to increase the number of lifeguards, letting New Yorkers know where they can and can't swim, what ideas, what affirmative ideas have been pursued by this administration to ensure that a summer like the one we just had does not occur again in terms of the loss of life at beaches?
Thank you for the question. So as I said in my testimony, we are already preparing for the 2025 season. We're already starting to think about recruitment, already starting to plan for the qualifying tests, already looking at how we're going to be communicating and bringing in more young people. As I said in my testimony, we're also tasking the council to help us with new recruits. We're hoping that the council will each send us 10 new recruits to our qualifying. So we know that it's critical, that connection between having enough lifeguards to man our pools and beaches. We're doing everything in our power to increase that. We also, as I said in my testimony, we are moving forward on a number of projects to enhance our both existing facilities, 39 pools. We'll have enhancements to infrastructure. We're building 2 new pools at Shirley Chisholm and at Roy Wilkins Park. And then we were thrilled with the New York Swims funding from Governor Hochul, an additional $46 million investment in pools across the city. So huge amount of money and investment in enhancing our swim infrastructure, and then a real focus on enhancing our recruitment. We've seen gains each year, and we expect that to continue.
I also want to recognize that council members Lee and Menon have also joined us. And before turning it over for some questions from my colleagues, I do want to ask a couple more questions, which were, how many pools under the Parks Department, public pools under the Parks Department jurisdiction are currently open to the public? How many are in rec centers versus other types of pools?
Thank you for the question. So we have 53 outdoor pools, and 50 of the 53 were open for summer 2024. The ones that were closed during the summer were Tompkins Square, which just received funding through this Governor Hochul funding, which we're thrilled about. Tony D'Apolito, and then Harlem Mere, as I think you've seen, is actively in construction, and we're looking forward to that opening next year. We have 12 indoor pools, Olympic and intermediate. 8 of the 12 were open for summer 2024, and we had 4 that were closed. In the Bronx, St. Mary's was closed. In Brooklyn, Brownsville was closed due to an ongoing restoration project, but we're thrilled that we announced funding that is going to completely renovate that pool. And in Manhattan, we have 2 pools that are closed, Hansborough and Tony D'Apolito.
Thank you. So in summary, again, sorry, it was how many are open versus closed on outdoor and indoor?
53 outdoor pools. 50 of the 53 were open for summer 24. And of our indoor pools, we have 12 indoor pools. 8 of the 12 were open for summer 2024.
8 of the 12 indoor pools. Got it. Thank you. I also want to recognize that we have been joined by Ms. Aminatu Noah. Amina is the mother of Elijah Chandler, who, with his friend Christopher Perkins, both were the first drowning victims of this summer. They were with us at our hearing, at our press conference last week. And Amina, I want you to know, as we spoke about then too, that to honor Elijah, to honor all who have lost their lives at our beaches, both this summer and in the past, we must do everything we can as a city to make sure no child, no New Yorker ever again loses their lives in our waters. And my last couple questions for now are, Commissioner, can you just, so you mentioned before, the Parks Department doesn't break down the budget by what's allocated towards beaches and pools, right? It's just an overall budget? Can you please get us that information of, I think it's important to see exactly, how many of the budget that we have, how much is being allocated towards this effort. So if you don't have that
Absolutely.
information, we'd appreciate it if you can send it over to our
We'd
committee.
be happy to follow up. And also, we can break down the number of staffing that are at each of those locations.
Okay, that would be great. I now want to turn it over. I'm going to take a break. I'll turn it over a bit to my colleagues to ask questions. First up is Councilmember Holden.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry, I had to step out for a few minutes, and maybe this question was asked, but of the 7 people that drowned this year, were lifeguards on duty on any of them?
Thank you, Councilmember Holden, for the question. 5 who drowned were on New York City beaches, and I believe only 1 was during lifeguard hours.
So only 1 drowned when there was a lifeguard on duty?
Yes.
And do you know the circumstances of that one?
I do not have the specifics. That would be the Department of Health is looking into the specifics of that
And
incident.
the hours that when they drowned, was that obviously was after a lifeguard was on duty? Was at
Exactly.
night, or was it?
Yes, in the evening.
So
Yeah.
this is what the chair was saying about extending the hours, especially in very warm weather. I know, and you didn't get the budget you deserve, first of all, and the mayor did promise that he was going to give us 1% in his campaign, and he didn't deliver, and that has repercussions. And this is one of them. This is a problem that we're facing, and my district has no pools. We fund swim instruction, but it's not enough. It's very, again, you can only reach a very few amount of your constituents. Have you explored, and again, I'm sorry if the chair asked this question when I was out, but have you explored sort of like swim teaching pools where they're much smaller, less expensive, but we can get the job done by reaching a number of constituents?
Thank you for the question, Council Member. And we have, our rec centers provide opportunities for swim teaching. In fact, for when people come in for the qualifying test, one of the things that we did for those who passed the qualifying test, we offered free membership for 6 months to people to train. So in order to then, if they pass a qualifying test, then they go into training. We offered free membership to our rec centers in order for people to enhance their skills. We have a swim improvement program that we offered at our rec centers, also to help individuals to be able to pass the rigorous lifeguard test. So yes, it's something we think a lot about, is how do we expand access to swim training.
So there's a lot of rec centers without pools. I'm just saying, within those rec centers, have you priced out, like, let's say a proposal of 50 of them, having, these smaller pools for training, for swim training?
Do you mean adding new pools?
Adding to them, like a capital project. What would it cost? I mean, I don't think it would cost the price of a large pool, but it would, what would it cost to really train especially our young children? I think the ages of 1.5 to 3, prime age, that's where you should train every child. And my daughter does that; she pays for it, but she thinks that's very, very important that her kids get that training. So, if we could work that out into a budget in the future years, I'm sure the council will support that. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Holden. One question I have is, are there, how many training sites are there across the city for people to become lifeguards?
Thank you for the question. Do you want to take that? Yeah? Okay.
So currently, we had this particular year for 2024, we actually extended the training opportunity. So Fort Hamilton High School, for example, was one that actually came to us and wanted to participate in being able to do training. Now DOE has seen the benefit of being able to try to do that, and we're looking to expand it to other schools throughout the city. So we're looking to be able to host a training program, hopefully, and our desire is to have one in each borough.
And, thank you for taking the question. So right now, is it just?
It's at Chelsea. It's at Chelsea. It's at Gertrude Ellery in Manhattan, and then we had the Fort Hamilton one in Brooklyn. And so we're hoping to be able to have sort of like Curtis High School possibly in the Bronx and other in Staten Island, and other schools, throughout. And DOE is very receptive to it.
And how, because, I think, Commissioner, you challenged us before on the council to find 10 people from each district to send, and that's a very good challenge to take up. But of course, the issue is sending 10 people from our districts to Fort Hamilton. I had a constituent whose child passed the test, but there was no way he could go from Jackson Heights to Fort Hamilton. This is a very real issue across our city. So unless we've got training programs across the 5 boroughs, as you mentioned, First Deputy Commissioner, we're going to run into this issue over and over again, even if we can find 10 people in each council district. So what exactly is the timeline, and what is Parks doing exactly to make that a reality by next summer?
So thank you for the question, Council Member. So as I said, we did a number of different things this year. We expanded the availability of the qualifying tests by 42%. So we had 47 qualifying tests in 2023. We had 67 in 2024. We were also expanded those test sites from 9 in 23 to 17 in 2024, including schools in each of the outer boroughs. As I said, if individuals pass the qualifying tests, we also offered free rec center membership to pools across the city for 6 months, so that young people could have access to training to improve their swim capabilities, to be more likely to be able to pass the test. And then, as the First Deputy said, we are committed to having a training facility. So there's the qualifying test,
Right.
and we expanded access to that. And then individuals would go into a training in order to be trained to pass the lifeguard test. We're looking to and committed to having a training site in each borough
Do
for
we know when that
2025.
For 2025?
Yep,
Okay. Thank
absolutely. That's when we'd need it. It hasn't started yet, but when it starts in next year, in 2025, we'd have a training site in each borough. The training starts about March or April.
Okay. Looking forward to it. Our hearing in March or April, to hearing the good news then.
We'll tell you before that, I'm sure.
All right. It's a deal. Councilmember Menon, think you have questions?
Great. Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you, Chair, for holding this important hearing. So a couple questions. So last year, the City Council passed my bill, which would, as you know, require the department to provide free swim lessons to second graders. I was notified that the program was delayed as part of the PEG earlier this year. So what is the exact status of the program?
Thank you, Councilmember Menon, for that question and for recognizing this, the importance of our Swim for Life program. Parks began Swim for Life in 2005. It's a really important program for us that we've been conducting for many, many years. It's a partnership with DOE. In FY24, we trained 20,000 to swim, 20,000 individuals to swim. Our Swim for Life in 2024, we trained 6,629 second graders were served through the Swim for Life program. We look forward to continuing to be able to do that. It's a strong partnership, as I said, with DOE, and we're working closely with DOE to be able to provide that access to schools and that training within schools for second graders.
But so when is it going to resume?
So our Swim for Life programming will start, is happening this fall. It starts at the beginning of the school year.
And at the same capacity that existed before?
We hope to be able to serve, as I said, in 2024, we were thrilled to be able to serve 6,629 second graders. We hope to be able to meet or exceed that this year.
So the point and why the council passed this bill was obviously to expand upon it. So, I mean, saying that we're going to do 6,000 kids is simply completely and wholly insufficient. I'm sorry I missed the beginning of the hearing, but we had another hearing at the same time. I'm sure the chair has already done questions on this. I apologize for, overlapping on that. But it's just, you've got families who are here who lost a child because of drowning. And then to see that the agency is not, when we have a bill that requires these swim lessons, is not doing it to the full capacity is unbelievably disappointing and upsetting. So
I'm sorry, Council Member. First of all, it was an expansion. So from 2023 to 2024, we expanded by over 1,000 children. In 2023, Swim for Life served 5,133 second graders. In 2024, Swim for Life served 6,629. So it was an expansion of over 1,000 second graders who were served through the program.
But under the council bill, it requires more of a universal program. The idea that we would get up to speed where we are providing free swim lessons to all second graders who need it. When would you anticipate that the agency could meet that goal?
That's not something I could answer today. It's absolutely something that we're focused on, and we agree with you. As I said, Swim for Life has been an important priority of ours for years. We started it back in 2005. It depends on a number of factors, including availability of school pools, busing of kids to those pools, and availability of aquatics instruction. So we are increasing. We increased from last year, served over 20,000 between our Learn to Swim and our Swim for Life programming. We're always looking to be able to expand and working closely with the Department of Education on partnerships and available pools so we can do that.
So I'm glad you mentioned the availability of pools. I'm sure the chair spoke about the program that he and I launched along with Asphalt Green and the Gray Foundation, where we are providing free swim lessons to 2,600 second graders across the city in communities in need. As part of that program, we mapped out every available pool and found there are close to 1,000 pools in the city that could be utilized. I mean, I think one of the most important things that can come from this pilot program we're doing is that we can prove that these other pools, they need to be utilized. If we're really going to be teaching children across the city how to swim, we have to utilize these other pools. So when will the Parks Department adopt that kind of outside of the box thinking where you're using not just city pools?
Thank you for the question, Councilmember. And as I said, we're working closely with DOE. We worked this year with CUNY and SUNY on, providing additional pools. But in terms of private pools and outside pools, that's not something that we right now have purview over, and there's additional expense with that. That would come from, other arrangements. Right now, we're working with our sister agencies where we can to be able to expand.
I would just, and this will be my last comment, I would just urge the agency to think outside of the box. You have so many different schools, universities that have pools that we could be able to utilize. I mean, we're doing it now with our pilot program, I think to great effect, and it would be terrific to see. The whole point of our pilot program is to adopt those best practices and have the agency be able to utilize them down the line.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Councilmember Menon. I mean, that's a really important point, and we mentioned before too that we had to do that in Jackson Heights. We don't have a public pool. So on that point, Commissioner, and you may have said it before, but I just think it's helpful to clarify the numbers. So, how many swimming pools are on DOE property? Which of these pools are open to the general public or to groups other than DOE students at any time?
Thank you, Councilmember. I do not have that number that would be a DOE question.
So have Parks and DOE ever discussed opening these pools for use by the public at times in schools?
We have weekly, almost seems daily meetings with DOE on availability of their pools and partnerships over pools, absolutely. And so our existing Swim for Life programming happens at DOE schools. And do you know the number of schools that we're using for Swim for Life? I know that it's at least... Yeah, so right now our Swim for Life programming is happening that, but in terms of other availability of DOE schools, I don't have that number. That would have to come from them.
Okay, I would ask if you can provide the committee with that information too, reaching out to DOE as well, especially if these weekly conversations are ongoing. It would be helpful to know how many school pools we're talking about, so we see the full universe of what could be possible. And going back to well, a couple different areas. Let's jump back to expanding pool and beach season. So we held a hearing last year on this issue, on my bill in particular, which would expand Intro 275, which expand opening hours at the beaches and pools, as well as expand the season. So can you provide any feedback? What would be necessary for the Parks Department to successfully implement this legislation when we enact it?
Thank you, Council Member, for the question, and we appreciate the focus, obviously, on access to pools and beaches and water safety. We are really proud of the extensive work we've done with lifeguards and recruitment. I think that there are there are a number of different factors that we would highlight. We've kept beaches open for a week past Labor Day for the past several seasons and have consistently found that visitation decreases sharply in the final weeks of the season. We can show you, we track our pools very carefully. We can show you the numbers. So we see a decrease, a real fall off in August in visitation. That's for one thing. And it's important also to note that our staffing ranks begin to decrease as the season nears its end, since most of our seasonal lifeguards are students that need to return to school. As I said, 45% of our new recruits this year were between the ages of 16 and 18. Those are kids who are going to go back to school in August. So, or that's made up of teachers. A big part of our core is people who are able to do the summer but then have to return to school. So both in terms of seeing visitation decrease, and then we know based on the data we have on who our lifeguards are, you'd see a drop in both staffing and in visitation.
And so, understanding the staffing issue, but also knowing there's a decrease in visitation, has the Parks Department had any conversations about what it would take to open up pool and beach season, extend pool and beach season? I understand the challenges, but has there been any conversation internally about how it could be done with the current lifeguard corps that we have, or in other ways?
What we tend to look at is kind of how our peers, across the state do it. The Parks beach season is essentially identical to Long Island beaches, such as Jones Beach and Long Beach, and it's significantly longer than many of the New Jersey beach seasons. So we feel like we're well aligned with other municipalities in terms of length of season. And then also what we know is that, and again, I want to emphasize our concern is about water safety. As the summer progresses and sun goes down earlier, there's limited, or visibility gets more difficult, especially at the beaches. One of the things that we prioritizes the lifeguards being able to provide that protection and water safety for beachgoers. So we'd have real concern about extending, the hours of the beaches when it starts to be that dusk becomes earlier, and would want to make sure that we can be able to keep people safe.
And on another point related to legislation that we're hearing today, are Parks and DOE currently engaging in any efforts to recruit and train students at DOE schools who may be interested in working as lifeguards?
Absolutely, yes. That's a big part of our conversation, is working closely and hand in hand with DOE. And as I said, there's an extensive, the amount of work that this team did on recruitment, going to PSAL events, tabling at swim meets, attending swim practices at schools, universities, talking with coaches across the city. And I think that's really why that extensive recruitment effort is why we saw that 45% increase in new recruits, and those new recruits were between the ages of 16 and 18. So high school students certainly got the message and came out, and that's where we saw a lot of growth, and that's where we're going to continue that close partnership with DOE and continue to work hard to attract those young people.
And would you agree that if the testing methods were expanded, not just the Parks Department tests, but also Red Cross certification or YMCA, that we might be able to see an increase in the size of the lifeguard force that we have? Would allowing more and varied forms of testing that are already being employed in other non-park department pools, would that help to expand and increase the size of the lifeguard force?
Thank you for the question, and given that we haven't done it, I couldn't say definitively. As I said in my testimony, we're quite pleased. We did make some changes to the lifeguard contract that I believe we're only beginning to reap the benefits of, with the shallow water certification, and we'll continue to see increases in our numbers because of the changes that we made, and this was historic. It's been 40 years since that contract was changed. The changing any kind of certification process would be based on collective bargaining, so that's a process we'd have to go through.
But it is true that the Parks Department pools have a different test than, let's say, YMCA pools or other, even DOE pools or school pools. Are there different tests employed at these different pools?
There is a curriculum that's specific to the New York City lifeguard certification process, absolutely, yes.
And my last question from my end is, you mentioned before the Learn to Swim program and Swim for Life. And I know I've asked this before, Commissioner, I always get a bit confused too, but it would be helpful to distinguish Learn to Swim from Swim for Life. And specifically, there was also funding that in 2 budgets ago, Mayor Adams had put in to expand one of those programs that was then cut. Which program was it that was cut?
Okay, thank you. So the Swim for Life program focuses on second grade students and provides them with certified swim instruction at our indoor pools during the school day as a regular part of their weekly class schedule. The Learn to Swim program is a targeted initiative conducted in partnership with the Department of Education. And so what we're doing with each of those is swim lessons to provide life-saving, water safety skills, introduce kids to the sport. So Swim for Life is essentially second graders, and then Learn to Swim is general swim instruction for the general population.
And is it safe to say that those programs being very popular are often oversubscribed, that there's a wait list to join them?
Absolutely, yeah, very popular programs. They're free and available to everyone, so they're very popular.
And so how many slots do you have for each program compared to what the demand typically is?
Yeah, we'd have to circle back to that.
Okay. But you'd agree, I think, that having more swim programs accessible and available with nonprofit organizations, given the high demand for the parks programs that are oversubscribed, would help to address that need, correct?
Absolutely. If there's more free swim programming available, it's to the benefit of everyone. Absolutely.
I'm now going to turn it over. I will ask the questions on behalf of Councilmember Caban, who was on virtually, but because we don't have quorum, I'll have to ask the questions for her. So these are Councilmember Caban's questions regarding Astoria Pool. And I'm gonna read them. When the pool first opened for the summer, our office, Councilmember Caban's office, received an outpouring of community feedback sharing that there was a chronic lifeguard shortage at Astoria Pool. Can you please outline the steps that the Parks Department has taken to ensure that more lifeguards are hired and adequately trained?
Thank you, yes, for the question. And as I've shared in my testimony, we've done an extensive amount of work to add more recruits and bring more people into the pipeline, whether it be expanding the number of qualifying test sites, expanding to having those test sites be available in the boroughs, offering swim training, working with DOE in partnership, and it's what has led to, as I described, real success. We saw a 45% increase in new recruits from all of that work and that partnership.
Constituents in District 22 provided feedback that during the first weeks of the pool opening, they were waiting up to 2 hours to be let inside to swim. As also the Parks Chair and the neighboring district, I received a lot of those complaints as well from people in Queens, in my own district too, and I saw it for myself firsthand on a number of occasions. So waiting 2 hours to be let inside to swim. Many constituents noted a lack of clear communication and management at the entry of the pool. Could you please describe how many staff are needed to run the Astoria Pool at full capacity?
I know that I have that. I think I have that. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that question. We were so pleased to be able to reopen Astoria Pool after a nearly $20 million renovation. It's absolutely beautiful. It's the biggest pool in the system, over 1 million gallons of water. It's beloved, we know, by the community. Because it was closed last season, there's no doubt that there was a whole lot of pent-up demand for that facility, leading to lines. And it's a beautiful facility and one that we know is beloved by the community. And it also, because it's the biggest pool in our system, takes about 30 lifeguards to run that facility. So there's no doubt that at the beginning, as we were adding staff, there were lines, but by July, we were able to open that at 100% capacity. But even at 100% capacity, there is still unmet demand because of the popularity of this pool. And so what we do in those circumstances, we work really hard to make that line experience as pleasant as we possibly can. And so if there are lines, we'll often go to a wristband so that people, what we do is we limit the amount of time in the pool. Instead of being there, for the full first session, we'll say people can be there for an hour. We have people leave so that we can let more people in on the line. So people on the line can have a wristband. We'll tell them to come back at a certain hour so that we can be able to accommodate as many people as possible at a very popular, newly renovated pool.
So 30 lifeguards are needed to fully staff it. So how many were there on call when the pool first opened?
I'm not sure if we have that number. Do we have that? No, we can get back. Yeah, we can
Okay.
get back to
If
you.
we can get information, that'd
Yep.
be very helpful. Much
Yep.
appreciated. Does Parks plan to open the entire pool without closing down sections of the pool in summer 2025?
We anticipate we'll do everything we can to. That's why we're already focused on recruitment for 2025 and bringing in as many lifeguards as possible. We look to do that at all of our pools, absolutely.
Our office, Councilmember Caban's office, was made aware of a disturbing incident in which a woman wearing a hijab was prevented from entering the pool. My office, through Councilmember Caban, was also made aware of this too, and she and I both spoke directly about it. We sent you a letter as well from both our offices. When Councilmember Caban's office inquired with the Parks Department regarding this matter, there was a lack of clarity around the pool's policy about religious attire. Has the Parks DEIB investigated the incident and made a determination about training or measures it will take in order to prevent such incidents from happening again?
Thank you for the question, and I'm aware of the letter that you and Councilmember submitted. First off, we do extensive training around customer service at our pools, and we absolutely want to ensure that our pools are welcoming and friendly and accessible to all. So it is an important part of the work we do leading up to pool opening is making sure that that our staff is focused on customer service and awareness of the rules. I am aware of the incident that was mentioned and apologize if they were not appropriate communication. We do have signage at the entrance to each of our pools. Someone just handed it to me. We can submit it for testimony. That does show what is allowed on the deck and in the water. Hijabs and turbans are allowed. We do also allow for modest observant swimwear. So there would not be a reason why someone would have been turned down for wearing a hijab. We post that. It's very visible. So if there was some miscommunication, I apologize on behalf of the agency, but we do work really hard to make sure our pools are welcoming and accessible to all.
That was an extremely concerning incident and raises a number of questions. And clearly, I know that Parks has the policy, but what happened on the ground in reality was very different and was very traumatic. And especially for so many Muslim New Yorkers in communities like Astoria, Jackson Heights, for a pool in Astoria, we would expect a far different standard of treatment and making sure that the staff there are adequately trained to understand different religions, cultures, and ensure pool policy reflects that. So on that note, I think you already answered it too, was the question was, can you share Parks policy on allowable attire to enter the Astoria pool? We'd appreciate if you could submit that as well.
Absolutely. Have it right here. We'll leave it. Yep.
Can you share the Parks Department's policy on permitting religious attire within the boundaries of the Astoria pool or any New York City pool?
So as we just discussed, we do have very clear signage on what's allowed. We do prioritize welcoming, accessible access to all of our pool facilities. That's why we make this signage readily available right at the front, and our folks who are working at the pool facilities know and are trained in what is allowed on the deck and in the water. We work really hard to make sure that people are aware and there's good customer service around that.
Is it your understanding that the Parks Department is allowed to limit and or deny access to a New York City public pool based on an individual's choice of religious attire?
So we do there in terms of our what's allowed on the pool deck, the material of the swimsuit or of what people are wearing in the pool does need to be suitable. There are rules and regulations around that. But as I've said, we will submit. We're very clear about allowing for hijabs, turbans, modest observant swimwear, and we provide access to all New Yorkers at our pools. Absolutely.
Seems to me that this situation needs to be closely addressed, as we wrote about in our letter too, to ensure that does not happen ever again. Councilmember Caban's office asked for immediate website updates and signage information informing guests of this policy. When can we expect to see these updates for pool guests posted online and at pool facilities?
So they already are posted at pool facilities. This document that I have is exactly what's posted at pool facilities. We'll leave that with you today, and we can submit it for testimony. Make sure you have it. So it is there today. It was there for the 2024 beach season. It will be there always. And we can also make sure that it's available and on our website.
Have there been any cultural sensitivity trainings provided for pool staff? Will there be any in the future?
As I said, we work hard at the Parks Department to ensure that we have good customer service for all of our frontline staff and people working at our pools and beaches and really throughout the park system. And I'm always so proud of the dedication and commitment of our park staff to making sure our facilities are welcoming. They know that's of importance to me and senior leadership at the Parks Department, and it's part of the training that they receive is to make sure that our pools and our facilities are welcoming to all.
So when will those trainings take place? Are they ongoing? When do they happen throughout the year?
All of our folks are trained when they're beginning the job. People are well versed in what the requirements are on the pool deck, and then we have a Office of Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging, and we, given this incident at Astoria Pool, we did have specific training for the staff post this event.
And are all the staff offered those trainings part-time, full-time, seasonal?
Yes, all the staff were offered that training.
And so will the Parks Department commit to continuing to provide training for all staff regardless of seasonal status? So,
Absolutely. We provide extensive training across the board for all of our staff.
thank you. Now I'll ask questions from Councilmember Narcisse. Is it possible to develop kid-friendly PSAs that effectively communicate drowning prevention and water safety tips? These could be shared on social media.
Thank you for the question, and we do work hard on our social media channels to emphasize beach safety, water safety. As I said, we did a whole lot of work this summer about the dangers of rip currents. So we're always looking to ways that we can attract interest, our park users and our park patrons. That's something we can absolutely look at.
And just a couple more questions from Councilmember Narcisse before I open it up for public testimony. What role do community outreach and education play in your current drowning prevention strategy, and how is this being expanded? You answered it before, but if you can just summarize it again, please.
Yes, absolutely. So it is an important aspect of what we do is emphasizing water safety training. As I said, we had our urban park rangers out and tabling at our beaches. They're first and foremost about educating people, and they play that role. And so they were out talking to people about water safety. We had a flyer that we made up that we posted that was on our social media. We also had flyers in multiple language, specifically about the dangers of rip currents. We know that in open ocean like the Rockaways, rip currents are a huge, huge concern. So we specifically focused on some of the urban park ranger programming and education around rip currents. We are Parks Enforcement Patrol. People be out, on the beaches, pools, are there to help to educate, inform people about water safety. Our messaging throughout the summer, our signage is very much focused on being safe in the water.
And finally, how does the Parks Department collaborate with city agencies like the Health Department or DOE to promote water safety across different demographics?
So we work closely with DOE, DOH. We have a very close partnership. They monitor our pools and inspect our pools on a regular basis. And DOE, as I said, we have regular meetings with them, and they are aligned with us in terms of our Swim for Life programming, access to pools. So we all have a common mission in that we're very focused on expanding access to water safety training and swim instruction.
Thank you so much. I look forward to hearing more updates and information that we requested sent over to, and look forward to all the work that Parks can do to make sure that we have a better pool and beach season next year too. We appreciate all your efforts, Commissioner, First Deputy Commissioner, all the Parks Department staff here. We also know that this is a larger issue beyond you all, the department, and requiring much greater intervention and assistance from City Hall. I'd now like to turn it over for public testimony. And the first witness I'd like to call up is Ms. Amina Noah. Sorry, Ms. Noah. Before I start, I do have to read something into the record for public comment. I now open the hearing for public testimony. I remind members of the public that this is a formal government proceeding and that decorum shall be observed at all times. As such, members of the public shall remain silent at all times. The witness table is reserved for people who wish to testify. No video recording or photography is allowed from the witness table. Further, members of the public may not present audio or video recordings as testimony, but may submit transcripts of such recordings to the Sergeant at Arms for inclusion in the hearing record. If you wish to speak at today's hearing, please fill out an appearance card with the Sergeant at Arms and wait to be recognized. When recognized, you will have 2 minutes to speak on today's hearing topics on water safety. And with that, thank you, Ms. Noah, for joining us today, and you can feel free to testify when you're ready.
Good morning, everybody. So I'm just basically here just to, it's been a lot going on with all the situation, especially with the drowning of my son. And I could imagine the things that I have been dealing with at home by myself and with the help of friends and family surround me. That's really what's helping me at this moment. That's my only son. That's my only child. So that's someone who has been a part of me. I say, without him going to basketball practice or sports, dealing with sports all the time, he's always around me. We always do things together, whether go out to eat, go to food events and different places. Now I don't have that no more. I just want to say, how do we fix this issue? Because I don't want to make another family feel what I'm going through on a daily basis. It's not a great feeling. And how do we fix this? What precautions we need to take? Because we need to have more lifeguards, more trained and proper education too, even for our kids, because a lot of teens go to the beach all the time in the summer. Thousands and thousands of people go to the beach. I don't think most of us know what's the difference of what does a flag stand for, a red flag stand for, especially with these young kids out here. They just want to go to the beach and have fun with their friends and hang out. Unfortunately, mine didn't come home this summer. It's a lot, but I just want no family to be going through what I'm feeling right now. That's all. I don't know what else to say. I'm sorry.
Ms. Noah, I want you to know that I speak on behalf of all New Yorkers, parents, myself included, that our hearts go out to you, our prayers, our condolences, and we are so unimaginably sorry. And as I said before, and as we spoke about at our press conference last week, you have a commitment from our city council with the speaker, with my leadership of the Parks Committee, that we in the city council will do everything we can to make sure that no one else loses their lives in the water. And as I said before, it is to honor your son, Elijah, in his name, in the names of all those who have drowned, for all of you as parents, as family, we must do no less as a city. We will do our part as a city council, and we urge the City Hall to do the same too. All our love is with you for such a difficult time, and our hearts break for you, and we will continue this work. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I think before we go any further, given the testimony, I just want to take about a moment of silence for all those whose lives we lost on the water this year. Thank you. Our next witness to call up for public testimony is Mariam Shoaib on behalf of Melika.
Thank you, Councilmember Shekhar Krishnan. I would also like to emphasize that I'm also a member of your district, so nice to see you in person. I would also like to re-emphasize the situation that was brought by Councilmember Tiffany Caban, and also wanted to shout out Tiffany Caban for her presence online. Thank you for representing us. As a representative from the Medica Center, we are a nonprofit organization that is specifically tethered to protecting women, more specifically Muslim women. And the situation that was brought to light by Councilmember Caban resulted from a Muslim woman that wanted to take her 8-year-old son out to the Astoria pool just for a day to relieve themselves from the heat. And not only was she denied entry, but in addition to that, she was also bolstered with a lot of Islamophobic comments coming from one of the staff members that called her quote unquote crazy for her beliefs as a woman who should look different than what is advertised on the guidelines that they had for appropriate swimwear. So I would like to take this time to also emphasize that 2 of the 7 deaths that occurred this past summer were Zainab and Aisha Muhammad, 2 Muslim women who were at Coney Island Beach, who are both beacons of selflessness to their respective communities. Both Zainab and Aisha had dreams to pursue a future in the medical field, one as a pharmacist and the other as a future doctor. So unfortunately, we have lost both of those prospects from our communities. But I would like to emphasize that we need more than just cultural sensitivity training. We need more than just signage that amplifies the specific guidelines of acceptable wear to those to the pools across the city. And I, as a Muslim woman who also doesn't know how to swim, I don't know how to swim because pools are not a safe environment for me, and I feel that I am ostracized just for my simple choice of looking differently than the I guess, the conventional look of what a woman should wear to a pool. I feel like just because I wear my hijab that I am looked at as someone who does not deserve the right to know how to swim, which is a very, very imperative survival tactic that everyone should know about, but unfortunately I don't. And I would also like to emphasize that we need more than just cultural sensitivity training, because these Islamophobic comments are the result of a rather narrow mindset that people have about what a Muslim woman should look like while she is taking a dip in the pool, or let alone watching one of her children take a dip in the pool. And I would also like to emphasize that as a women's safety organization, Medica is committed to guaranteeing the rights of all women, more so Muslim women. And when a Muslim woman does not feel welcome at one of our city's oldest pools, then that is a line that we draw. And I thank you, Councilmember Shekhar Krishnan, for leading. Sorry.
That's okay, you can finish it.
Thanks. I just wanted to thank you for all the work that you've been doing to address this crisis that we have. We should not be scared for our lives when we go to enjoy ourselves in a beach or in a pool. And furthermore, Muslim women should not be scared to take up the freedom to take a swim in a pool. And I shouldn't be dictated as to I shouldn't be criminalized just because I choose to wear a head covering to the pool. And that's my comments. Thank you for giving me the space.
Thank you so much for your testimony, your powerful testimony, and I couldn't agree more. And it's nice to see you as a constituent, an advocate here in our district and in Queens too. I'd now like to call up Olga Perez from MVP Lifeguards.
Thank you. So again, my name is Olga Perez from MVP Lifeguards, and we are the vendor for the New York City Department of Health Making Waves program. And we were a part of their expansion. So it existed in 2015, where they were providing progressive swim to summer camp students from the New York City Department of Youth and Community Development. And with their pilot program and expansion into the high schools, became the contract that we're currently overseeing. So essentially what we're doing is providing progressive swim and lifeguard training in selected schools throughout the city. And the swimming lessons is part of the PE credit. So I wanted to just make you aware of this program that's already existing through the New York City Department of Health. And then with additional funding for this program, we would be able to create a pipeline for the lifeguards for the city. So for example, again, we participate in various schools throughout the city. So example, over at Seward Park right now, unfortunately, due to the lack of funding for the fall, we're not able to provide swimming in that school. But if we had additional funding, then we would be able to provide swimming lessons in the fall and also in the spring. So by the time the summer season comes around, they'll be able to get certified. So while the city is aggressively recruiting lifeguards, let's say from the swim teams, let's also be mindful of the other students that we can teach them how to swim and really implement swimming as a PE credit and as a requirement, not only for the pipeline of lifeguards, but also for water safety in general, where our kids should be able to be safe in the water, and also educate them with the importance of rip currents and the beaches and so on and so forth. So I just wanted you to be aware of this amazing program that's already existing.
Well, thank you so much for your testimony, Olga, too, and for all your work and all the MVP's Lifeguards works, too, and for making us aware of all the work you're doing, too. Would love to hear more about it as well. So please reach out to our office, and we'd be very happy to meet and to discuss more, too. So thank you for your work.
Definitely. I'll give you my card on the way out.
Sure. Thank you. And our last witness for today is Caitlin Kraus from Rising Tide. Thank you.
Good afternoon, esteemed members of the City Council and fellow New Yorkers. My name is Caitlin Kraus. I'm the founder and executive director of Rising Tide Effect, and I am a member of the task force for the city called the Lifeguard Inter-Organizational Task Force, along with Parks. And I'm an appointed commissioner for the state on the Temporary Commission to Prevent Childhood Drowning. Today I'm here, though, to speak about the crisis, the one that's not only preventable, but is actively claiming the lives of our children. This is not just a concern, it's an emergency. Imagine if this were happening on our roadways, if 4 to 7 people were dying on the same street every summer. Would we stand idly by? No. We would immediately see traffic lights, signage, speed limits, anything and everything to prevent further loss of life. Action would be swift, decisive, and prioritized. Yet for some reason, when it comes to drownings, we haven't responded with the same urgency. Perhaps it's because the full scope of the issue isn't being recognized. Our data is selective and limited, and this has slowed progress. The community is ready to act, but feet have been dragged and unhelpful responses have jammed up initiatives we need to save lives, especially the lives of our children. The solutions are right in front of us, and the stakes couldn't be higher. The time for going to the drawing board and debating next steps has passed. City Hall must act now. At the heart of this issue is the need for water safety education to be part of our school curriculum. It's not enough to rely on lifeguards or parents. Every child must be equipped with situational awareness around water. A 10-minute conversation about rip currents in schools can save lives. But despite being surrounded by water, our children are not taught these essential skills in school. Now, the largest resource in this crisis is the Parks Department, which oversees our city pools and beaches. But logically speaking, how can they do more with a budget that has been continually slashed, especially when it comes to water safety? How can they adequately staff our beaches if more than half of our New Yorkers have no swimming or water safety knowledge at all? The Parks Department is at the mercy of the administration's priorities. Budget cuts have made it clear where water safety ranks on that list. And while this is a Parks hearing, it's a vital issue that needs to land on the desk of our mayor. We can't simply resign our youth to drownings as nature being nature. It's unacceptable to claim that parents who oftentimes don't have the knowledge themselves about the water should bear the full responsibility for their children's decision to enter the water, especially when those children are tempted into the water during a heat wave after lifeguards have left but the sun is still beating strong. At the memorial at Beach 44th, just this Friday morning, Miss Amina, the mother of one of the young drowning victims, told us, Elijah knew how to swim. He just didn't know about rip currents. Our leader of New York City should not wait for other cities to lead. We are New York City. We lead the way. Water safety education must be a public priority. Our administration should be investing in lifeguard recruitment, comprehensive water safety campaigns, and most critically, a curriculum in our schools that teaches every child how to stay safe in and around the water. I urge this administration to take immediate, common sense action. Together, we can prevent these unnecessary tragedies and build a safer future for our children. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for Rising Tide's work. This ends the public testimony of our hearing and concludes today's hearing too. I want to thank all the advocates and organizations who are here for the great work that they do. As I mentioned at the beginning of this hearing, this is a crisis, and we must do everything we can to address it. Thank you so much, everyone. This hearing is now concluded.